Welcome back, guys. This is Inside FPL on the Locker Room Vibes. So, Game Week 3 is almost here, deadline being 1000 hours GMT. So, depending on your time zone, let's get into it. So, it's 10 is going to, it's turning out to be a very interesting game week by all standards as usual. We are hoping for the best. We are looking forward to some interesting matches. We are looking forward to what the EPL can bring as usual. The ups and downs, the disappointments, the excitement, and let's we hope we wouldn't have any surprises this week. So getting into it, as I always say in my past videos, if you haven't watched them, kindly do so. I always talk about injuries. Listen to what the managers are saying. And from the press conferences so far, we have the normal injury checklists with the normal injuries. That is people who are already injured from probably game week 1, game week 2. Some are still there recovering. Others still have a few weeks to go. Others quite some time. And rather unfortunately, we have some of our starters in there now. So the most recent addition that was from that would be Frimpong. So Frimpong was, I think, the most uh, notable player to join very recently. I think game week 2. After him, now game entering into game week 3, we have Palmer in there, we have Saka in there, we have Martin Odegaard too in there, and a few players here and there who are just recovering from knocks, just some muscle injuries. So we'll see how that too goes. We have some players who are yet to train. So once they train, the coaches will be able to access their availability for the game week. So let's keep our fingers crossed for such players. For Saka, we know he's going to be out for a while. We hope not too long. Palmer, a while, he's going to be out. We also hope not too long because his injury is not something so extensive as by the coaches. That is by what the coaches said. So we are hoping for the best. And if you want to get to know more, just visit the press conference. You can do that via the Premier League app. Just look for injuries, or you can look for the press conferences and listen to what your favorite manager had to say concerning your team and how that is also going to affect your team selection. So basically, the most notable ones are the players I've put out there: Palmer, Martin Odegaard, and Bukayo Saka. So getting into it, let's take a look at the fixtures for this game week and how interesting those ones too would be for us. So before that, prior to game week 3, we had game week 2, which was all sorts of fun. A few disappointments here and there. So it started as we said, Chelsea winning by 5 goals to 1, Spurs by 2 goals to 0 against um, a City side at home. So let's see what this week Spurs also bring. We have Bournemouth winning at home against Wolves. We have Brentford winning at home against Aston Villa. Burnley 2 beating Sunderland at home against Sunderland. Arsenal sitting at home comfortably to win a match against Leeds United by 5 goals to 0. Nottingham and Crystal Palace playing a draw. There's a 1-1 draw. Everton at home winning by 2 goals to 0 against Brighton and Hove Albion. Manu going away to Fulham and playing a 1-1 draw. Liverpool beating Newcastle at their home by 2 goals to 3. So all in all, it looks like the trend is most teams won at home, with the exception of Spurs winning away and Liverpool also winning away. But all in all other teams were comfortable at home. Okay, Chelsea also won away, so let's see how comfortable how that's whether it could play this it could happen this week. So this week going into it, we have Chelsea taking on Fulham. So Chelsea at home. There's 11:30, and if you know me, you know I'm always skeptical about 11:30 matches. I don't know, but I feel sometimes we have this thing we call early kickoff, the early kickoff cares. That is what we call it here. Early kickoff cares. Sometimes we feel the early kickoff matches don't really bring a lot of hope as we expect. That is always at 11:30. If it's Monday, you are good to go. But if it's an early kickoff at 11:30, sometimes it doesn't really bring the expectation that we want. So fingers crossed for this one. It doesn't always happen. Just a few matches. Sometimes things go your way. Other most of the times or other times it goes wayward. So let's keep our fingers crossed for this one to see what Chelsea can do against Fulham. Then moving on, we have Manu taking on Burnley. Then Spurs taking on Bournemouth, Sunderland v Brentford, Wolves v Everton, Leeds against Newcastle, Brighton Hove Albion against Manchester City, Nottingham Forest against West Ham United, Liverpool against Arsenal. That will be on Sunday. So Brighton City Sunday, Nottingham Forest West Ham Sunday, the Liverpool Arsenal, as I said, also on Sunday. And we end the game week with Aston Villa Crystal Palace. Aston Villa Crystal Palace. So it's going to be interesting, as I said. Looking at the games, it's all sorts of interesting. As I said, Chelsea, Fulham. Let's get into it. So selections and who to pick, who not to pick. Before we go fully into the analysis and selections here and there, I would like you to do one thing. Kindly subscribe, like, leave a comment. Tell us how you also plan on getting your team set up this weekend, who you decide to give your captain to, who your best performers, your best performing player so far is. Let's get to hear from you. Let's get this interactive. All right, so let's continue. So so for Chelsea Fulham, you're expecting a very exciting game. Fulham are a team that they tend to bring the worst out of some big teams. Most of the times, it's not going to be a straightforward win against any big team. They will try to frustrate you a bit. They did so against Manchester United last game week. Hopefully, they don't do the same against this Chelsea team this week, as so many managers have players in Cucurella, they have players in Joao Pedro. So far, these are the top selected players from Chelsea. Joao Pedro. We also have Cucurella. So we hope they can also give something exciting. And some managers have Enzo Fernandez as well. So I think top three being these players. Top three would have had Palmer in there if Palmer would have been in the mix if he wasn't injured. But it's rather unfortunate he's picked up an injury, so you would have to rule him out, even though some managers are yet to even transfer him out. Some have already done that. He's still in the mix somewhere, but it wouldn't be prudent to still have him. That is unless if you have a very good bench and you wouldn't want to do so many transfers this game week to either conserve your free transfer or something of that sort. So if you have a free transfer, you feel like I'm not too excited about using it now because we are heading into an international break. Would have some time, so hopefully he should be back just after the international break. You wouldn't want to really take that risk. You can just put him on the bench. That is if you have a good player to substitute him with, and you should be good to go. So Burnley, Manchester United. I'm still not certain about the Man U team, even though they are facing a Burnley team that like to express themselves, like to be open, play good attacking football. I still feel Man U could still struggle. They could still struggle, but nevertheless, Man U are the upper. They are the bigger team here. Wouldn't want to underestimate them against a newly promoted Burnley side who are still trying to figure things out once again, even though they are not so new to the Premier League, but they are still trying to sort out one or two things. I would keep my fingers crossed on this one. I've seen most players or most managers going for Martinez Cunha. I've seen one or two managers also bring in Bruno Fernandes. I've seen one or two managers bring in Mbuebo. That's alright. If you feel you need to have one of these players, I would suggest you go for Bruno Fernandes. Because if you watch my past videos, as I always say, so if you've not kindly watched, you'd realize we've also spoken about set piece takers, and you'd have that in Bruno Fernandes. Once a penalty arises, Bruno will be there to save you. Once a free kick or a good set piece comes in either a corner or something, you'd have Bruno Fernandes step in. Even though you have Mbuebo taking one or two corners, you'd have um, basically you would have Bruno Fernandes taking the very good free kicks. You would have him also taking the penalties. Don't be too concerned about his miss last week. It's one of those things. They are still building on confidence. There's a team that is struggling. There's a team that is still building. So it's normal. It happens even to the best of players. So you could have Bruno Fernandes amongst the three. If it's too much from if it's too much having all three players, I suggest just take one, and that could be Bruno Fernandes. If you feel Bruno is too expensive, you could go in for either Matthias Cunha, or you could go for Mbuebo, because you would have Mbuebo and Matthias Cunha all playing very good attacking roles, and this could also help your chances. So let's see how that goes as well. So any of these three players would be a good selection. Then Spurs Bournemouth. Here we have another interesting match coming on. Spurs taking on Bournemouth. This Bournemouth team have proven to be very structured, disciplined. Against Spurs, against Liverpool, they showed that they were very disciplined with their attacks, with their defending, very disciplined. They made so much runs. They were very aggressive. They worked very hard, and that is something that I would have to commend them for. So against this Spurs team, too, are also showing a whole lot of discipline, playing very hard, showing so much quality. It's going to be a very interesting match. It's going to be a very interesting match, but I see Spurs coming out on top, because this Spurs team have shown a whole lot of quality, and now I think they just signed Xavi Simons from RB Leipzig, which is going to be a plus for them as well. So all in all, I think this is going to be more of a structured match, where you'd have, even though Bournemouth will not have a low block, they will not sit back. They are going to be very structured when it comes to defending, and this is where you are going to have a lot of wing plays. You are going to have a lot of crosses. You are going to have a lot of take-ons. So you should be looking at players who strive in that section, or in that format. So I would think you should have a player like Mohamed Kudus. You could have Eric Charlison, who would be at the finishing end of most of those attacks. And you could also have a Pedro Porro, who would be making runs from the back once Bournemouth decide to settle down and yeah, and play a very good defensive game. So you could have Pedro Porro as well. So these three players should do you a good justice. And then differential, you could bring in Brendan Johnson as a very good differential option. So all in all, we are making the team. This is how we are going to make the team. So we already have two players from Chelsea being Joao Pedro Cucurella. We have a player from Manu being either Mbeumo, Cunha, or Bruno Fernandes. We have two players from Spurs being Richarlison or Mohamed Kudus or um, Pedro Porro, and a differential in Brenna Johnson. So all in all, we have a selection of about three or four. You could also bring in Semenyo from Bournemouth. That is, if Bournemouth are able to come into the game, you should expect Semenyo to be the one leading the attack with very good take-ons and a few good shots here and there. Then Sunderland Brentford, very interesting game. Sunderland, after a marvelous performance in game week 1, suffered a 2-0 loss to Burnley. Bond and Brentford too have proven to be very formidable opponents. So let's see how that one goes for them as well. So a player from either selection wouldn't be bad. You could have a defender from Sunderland because Brentford are not scoring so many goals. So you could have a defender from Sunderland. You could also have an attacker or a midfielder from Brentford. So let's get going. Wolves Everton. Wolves, as I say, are still trying to figure things out. Everton too are still putting things together. Last week we had some good performances from Grealish and some other players. So all in all, this game week you could have differentials from either Everton or Wolves, and I am doing that. I have a differential from Wolves. So as I said in my previous videos, this game week or for some game weeks to come, I think for the next 2 or 3 game weeks, I'm just going to be applying differentials. What most managers won't be picking. I'll be having at least 2 or 3 in my team amidst the regular starters. I'm going to incorporate a few differentials to see how that works as well. So moving on, we have Leeds versus Newcastle. This match I think is going to be very interesting as you would have Leeds. Um, Leeds will want to press, want to attack. You would have Newcastle also coming all out. This is a team that suffered a very disappointing win to Liverpool last week. That was a 3-2 loss where Liverpool edged past them by just that last goal via the assist from Salah. So you would have Leeds United also wanting to power through. So all in all, it could be a match of so many goals. Moving on to Sunday, we have Brighton v City. So here you could have a differential in the Leeds Newcastle match as well. So Brighton City, Haaland has always had good performances against Brighton, so you could have Haaland in the mix. You could have Rendes also in the mix because he's going to be that guy to start everything. For the rest of the players, I think Pep would still like to rotate in 1 or 2, so I'm not too certain with the other players. But you could have a Rendes, you could have Haaland, and at least that should be good for now. Then moving on, West Ham, Nottingham Forest. You could also have a player from a differential or a player from this match, or the player being I would go for a Chris Wood from Nottingham Forest because now um, West Ham seem to have lost their edge, struggling to win matches. They could come out, they could start the game very well, come out with a first goal and just lose everything. They are still struggling defensive wise. So you could go for a Chris Wood. You could go for A differential from West Ham. So that's I would suggest Bowen from West Ham. You could just have that as a differential. Should in case West Ham decide to now um, find their feet. Liverpool, Arsenal. This match I think is going to be very, if not boring, it's going to be very tactical. Let's see how that goes because you are playing Liverpool are playing an Arsenal team which had one of the best defenses last season, and even till now, they are showing that they still have potential to maintain that against a Liverpool team that some way somehow are struggling defensively as they've lost one or two good players. They've brought in new players, and they are still trying to figure things out with with their system and all. But all in all, I think it's going to be an interesting match. There might not be so many goals, but with a little there, you could have uh, Jokeres coming showing something different if the wingers of Arsenal are able to deliver the goals. You could also have Ekitike also giving some good performance, even though it's going to be very tough against this um, wild Arsenal defense. We still hope to see what he can also bring out because he's proven to be very physical, and that is one of the main attributes of the Arsenal defenders. They are very physical. So let's see how their physicalities help each of them. Then lastly, we have Aston Villa Crystal Palace. This is going to be another interesting match as usual. Aston Villa are still trying to figure things out, playing good football, but the end product is lacking. Crystal Palace just lost a good winger or a good player in Eze. They signed a player from Villarreal. Let's see how that goes as well. So all in all, Crystal Palace, Everton, you could have a differential from that match, and you could have a player or two from the Arsenal Liverpool match, a defender from Arsenal, a striker or you definitely should have a striker or winger from Liverpool, and maybe a midfielder or so from Arsenal. So two or three players from this fixture won't be bad as well. A differential from the Crystal Palace Aston Villa match as well won't be bad at all. So coming to the player statistics, you'd want to look at who is the most transferred in player. That is for those of us who want to follow the trends. If you want to follow the trends, as usual, you just want to look at who is the most transferred in. So most transferred in, you have Semenyon leading the mix. You have Joao Pedro in there. You have Chris Wood from Nottingham Forest. You have Richarlison from Spurs, Bernard Johnson from Spurs, Ekitike from Liverpool, Kudus, Gapo, Cucurella. So all in all, it's continuous. You could go through, and I've already spoken about most of these players. So all in all, if you are to make your selection, I've already given you the hints, and it's reflecting here. I mentioned Semenyo, I mentioned Pedro, I mentioned Chris Wood, I talked about Richarlison, a differential in Johnson, Ekitike, I mentioned that, I mentioned Kudus, I mentioned an attacker from Liverpool, so that could be Salah, it could be Gapo. I mentioned Cucurella from Chelsea. I talked about a defender from Arsenal, so you could have Saliba, you could have Gabriel, you could also have Timber. I mentioned Cunha, I mentioned Poro, I mentioned Rennes, Calafriori, defender. I talked about Grealish performance. I said you could have a differential. Livramento from Newcastle as a differential. Van de Ven from Spurs. That is a defender. You could also have Haaland. As I mentioned, he always has. He seems to have a good game against Brighton and Hove Albion. And we have Bruno Fernandes. All in all, every player in there I've spoken about. I've given you the tips already. I've shown you who would be your best your best fit. So all in all, we've already given you all. I've given you all the goals. I've shown you who most managers are choosing, and it's clear. So you can also build your team around these players, and just look at the threat creativity. Some of them have very very good points, which goes to show that whatever that I'm saying, it's proven by stats. It's proven by stats already. You can see that in the points, in the selections over the game weeks, how managers have selected them over the game weeks. You would have that showing. You would have that showing as well. So transferred out, as I said, Palmer is injured, so most managers are taking him out. Saka, same. Frimpong, they already started that a long time ago. Wets, I think he's not proven to be what most managers hoped for, so they are taking him out. Baldwin too is not proven to be what most managers. Watkins too, so most managers are taking them out, but you could keep them for differentials. Fernandez as well. If they both would show up as differentials. So looking at the fixtures, we have some very interesting fixtures as over the next 2 to 3 weeks, and all in all very interesting to always get into, because you wouldn't want to be doing a whole lot of transfers each game week. You would want to focus on a team that can take you there for at least 2 or 3 game weeks. So Arsenal, they're already facing a very tough team this game week. So this is how it's looking when it comes to fixtures. This is how it's looking when it comes to fixtures. So if you go for a Manchester United player, know that in the second game week after this game week, they would be facing City. Are you ready for that? Would you want to substitute them? You should also consider that. If you go for a Spurs player, you know you have the advantage of keeping him for that game against West Ham. That would be a plus. So all in all, this is how you should always look at things to get yourself to get things going. So you should be looking at some teams who have very very good fixtures, and it should really help you in the subsequent game weeks. So this is how my team is looking prior to game week 3, which I said ends 10:00 hours GMT. So you would want to really get things going, get access, how things get access um, things. So comparing what I just showed you to this, you realize I didn't really make any substitutions. I just left it untouched. I just made substitutions with a bench. I didn't really bring in any new player. I want to keep my free transfer and add up to it next week. That's the next game week, because after this we are heading into an international break. So that will be like 2 weeks, or yeah, so 2 weeks. So looking at the next game week, I want to change a few things here and there. So I'm just maintaining my team, but I don't have so bad a team. As I said, you have some key starters and differentials, and that is what I'm really focused on. So I have my differentials in Baldwin, Chan, Thiago, uh, I would say Mateta, because so far he's not proven to provide a goose, but fingers crossed he wouldn't really be so much of a differential, as most managers also keeping an eye on him. So my normal starters being Salah, Semenyo Kudus, Gabriel, and Sanchez as well, and Cucurella. So I have about 5 or 6 starters against 4 or so differentials. So let's see how that goes for me this weekend. So I kept an Arsenal player as well. So let's break it down. So Chelsea against Fulham, we are hoping for at least some good saves. If even Chelsea had to concede. We are expecting some good saves from Sanchez, so that's why I have Sanchez in there against Raya against Liverpool. I feel this Arsenal defense would be very structured, and if we are not too lucky, they might not face a lot of shots, so which means the keeper might not make a lot of saves, and I wouldn't really want to take that risk. So hence me putting in me starting Sanchez ahead of Raha, because I would want the saves even though I might lose the clean sheets. So hopefully let's see how that goes. Then coming to defense, I started with Gabriel. So Gabriel being my top defender from Arsenal. I also have Nunes from Crystal Palace. I like him because if he doesn't show up defensively, attacking wise too, he has some few good options there as he likes to make runs um, into the opponent's third to deliver a cross or an assist. So let's see how that goes. Cucurella as well likes to drift in, as that is the instructions given to both players. We have Kudus, as I said, this match would be very structured. You could have Bournemouth sitting very disciplined. So you need more creative players to deliver the goals, and I am hoping Kudus can do that. Semenyo, he's been a good player so far this game week, this season. So hopefully, if the goals go both ways, I could have Kudus delivering an assist, Semenyo get delivering an assist or a goal, and probably a goal too for me. So let's keep our fingers crossed. He chan against Everton. So far, I'm still contemplating because he's not played so many minutes this season. So I might take him out and bring in Morgan Rogers to see how that goes as well. Because Rogers plays the 90 minutes, but it's just left to the end product. So let's see how that goes. Hichan last season wasn't too bad, provided some good assists and goals, but let's see how things go for him as he's yet to really establish himself in this new setup. And Salah as well, so should in case we have any good set piece, I'm counting on Salah to deliver the goals for me against Arsenal. Then Bright Mateta against this Aston Villa team that are still struggling. Hopefully his physicality could help, and we'll bully our way through this Aston Villa defense. Baldwin against Nottingham Forest. Hopefully West Ham are able to prove themselves worthy of managers' trust. So let's keep our fingers crossed. Then Thiago from Sunderland. So Thiago from Brentford against Sunderland. It's going to be very interesting as I feel Sunderland would want to be very structured against this team. But who to provide that was unexpected goal from Brentford. Hopefully, once things go their way, Thiago. So would I'll keep that in mind as well. And all in all, this is how my bench looks like. I have Rogers, Van de Beek, Kosa. So I would want to keep some few um, transfers so I could substitute some players and bring in a new set of differentials and see how that goes as well. So share with us how your team is looking. Let us know what your your options are, and tell us who your captain is. Tell us why you are going for that player. I went for Kudus because, as I said, I'm expecting that creative player from Spurs to deliver the goals, to deliver the goals, and who else than Kudus? So hopefully, fingers crossed, we could get that going for us as well, and let's see how things go. So thank you guys for joining. We'll see you at the end of game week.